Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Insufferable Experts. I am David, the lawyer. This is Kaylin, the founder, and Tyler, the technologist. We are the three people you try to avoid at a cocktail party. This week, we're talking about stupid things people do to delude themselves into thinking they're making actual progress. Being a founder is a state of perpetual self-doubt. So people do a lot of things to try and convince themselves that they're making progress with their company and to avoid that self-doubt. And a lot of them are really, really ineffective. So that's what we're going to talk about this week. We mostly are viewing this as sort of like a humorous takedown of dumb ideas. That's a little bit helpful, but mostly humorous. Tyler,
And
you're going to start us off.
yeah, and we may or may not have done it ourselves before, so we can speak to it.
There's no roast as good as a self-roast.
Exactly.
So, David, we were talking about people that post every single day, and their metric is like, I'm getting so many followers, and therefore business must be doing good. And I am guilty of this. I was doing that a lot. I was posting content. I was collecting followers. It wasn't always mission driven, but it made me feel good. The feeling was, I'm doing hard work. I'm writing. I'm getting things out there, and people are giving me validation by following me, right? So I was posting on LinkedIn every single day, and I was building an audience, but that audience wasn't always there for what we were building and helping educate them and tell them what we were doing. And so in my head, I'm like, I'm making this progress every single day. But then we looked at the tangible business metrics and things weren't moving the needle. And so this is an example of what we're going to talk about in this episode. The things that you do because it's such a hard journey to give yourself affirmations that A, you're working hard, and B, you're doing something that's moving the needle, until you inevitably look back 6 months later and you're like, holy crap, what a waste of time. But I honestly think that's part of the journey. But Kaylin, I'm going to throw it over to you because I feel like you have some pretty good takes on this. What is one that you, or pick multiple, I don't know, that you would call out?
Let's start with conferences. I mean, we're in the blockchain space, and I love a good blockchain conference because I get to see people that I love and adore and interact with, their friends. But I do think that many conferences are billed as a networking opportunity. There are lots and lots of side events that are hosted by venture capitalists who are fishing for companies that seek investment. And so many of these end up being the most grave disappointments, right? I've been to countless events that have been, air quotes, hosted by venture capital funds where they put a dozen bagels on a table with a couple of little pots of cream cheese and nary an investor shows up. They bring you into their office. You've got to beg, borrow, and steal to get your way in. And then you get up there and it's a bunch of founders talking to each other. And I think that there is a lot of comfort that comes with feeling like you signed up for these events, you got into them. Now everything is an application process. Tyler, you know this very well. I spend how much time applying to events relentlessly when I'm going to travel to Singapore, to Las Vegas, to Mexico, to anywhere on the radar where we're doing a conference and trying to show up, make the most out of it. And a lot of what ends up happening is this sort of comforting cycle of, all right, I went to the thing, I did the thing, I spoke with 47 people, and I tried to make at least 10 of those conversations meaningful. Meanwhile, something I think is rather entertaining, but also emblematic of Tyler and my founder relationship, which is, you know, I'm trying to make the most out of every moment. And if somebody is a really compelling discussion, I am furiously texting Ty on the side, like, okay, I have this much information about this person. We're in an interesting conversation. Here's where they are. Here's where they're from, et cetera, right? Give me a dossier so I can, you know, hold a competent conversation. And these are things that we feel like are doing the work. We're like, all right, cool. I'm in it. I'm here. I'm having a good discussion. And then the takeaway is so frequently virtually nothing. Yeah. And so I think that conferences, very personally, we have sort of settled on a space of like, if I'm not speaking at the conference, I'm probably not going. And there is a lot there. It's a very complex, ball of wax to undo and untangle. But I will say, I think a lot of people in a lot of spaces, it's not just blockchain, it is marketing, it's digital marketing, it is CPG brands who are exhibiting. There are a lot of places where we think, if I just put myself in the valley of success, something good will happen if I just do the work. But what we're starting to see is at such volume, at such scale, so many of those events are just like a lot of people showing off. They came to say that they came, they hosted an event to get some press, and that's fine. But everybody else who is continually contributing to their numbers of attendance is failing themselves and the system as a whole. So that is my that's my proverbial Ponzi scheme of how you think that you are moving the needle and you are moving toward success by attending events and getting into more and more and more exclusive rooms. And yet at the same time, they are less and less well attended by the people you actually came for. Because at scale, it's incredibly difficult to support that meaningfully. So
Yeah. Okay, now can we talk about some silly things people do? Because
sure.
I want some ridiculous examples.
What about like morning routines? Is that one of the things you're going to talk about, David?
Oh, I can talk about morning routines.
Yeah, let's do it.
I do not have a morning routine. I am staunchly anti-morning routine. And I think one of the ridiculous things people do to convince themselves that they're making progress is have a very strict morning routine. Like, I got up and I made my bed and I made a cup of coffee and I went to the coffee shop. Great. No one cares.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't do anything for your business. Or here's another one that I'm staunchly anti. I worked X number of hours. I don't care. The number of hours you worked has no correlation whatsoever with how much progress you're making on your business. If I sit for 5 hours and make a huge amount of progress and take that 5 hours and all I do is focus and work on things that are important, write important emails, write a blog post, talk to clients, get out deliverables, that's way better than even a common office job where you go in, you screw around for 45 minutes talking to your colleagues, you might sit down, and then you might work for 10 minutes and you go, oh, it's lunchtime, and then you go have lunch for an hour, and then you come back and you have stupid meetings. And so like that, all of that like stupid inefficiency of morning routines is part of why I started my own company in the first place. Because I was like, well, there are law firms. I could join a law firm, but that's so dumb. There's a better way to do it. And so that is why I am staunchly anti-morning routine. I just think it's a complete waste of time. Do what works for you. But
I think
be with you, and I can't wait. But
I think we're going to enter this really interesting realm of AI agents. I think this is the first time we talked about AI in like 6 episodes. But like, you are going to have people, David, who are like, yeah, I don't need to do all of the filler crap, and I don't have to deal with other humans that are create filler crap. And I'm going to have these things just do stuff for me. And you're going to have people that literally do not work all of the hours and get as much or not more done. And it's going to kind of expose a lot of this of what you framed up, which is like, I worked a lot, therefore business is happening, right? And like measuring each unit of work, like no one's going to be there like, well, let's see what was the ROI of what you did there, right? Yeah, but there is going to be a juxtaposition now, which I think is really interesting, and like very accessible. It used to be that you needed to be able to code or understand all these automation tools and stuff like that to make it happen. Now you're going to be able to have conversations. So I think it's going to be an interesting shift we're going to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are people's personal routines are just that. They're personal. And if it makes you feel better, I have made my bed every day for years. Why?
Oh, honestly, why?
Because it makes the room feel complete and peaceful and zen. And to me, the feeling of zen contributes to the rest of my well-being. It doesn't take much. I don't have 67 throw pillows. I actually have a very good friend of mine, shout out Olivia if you're listening, who has 400 throw pillows, and it takes an hour to make the bed. That's different But to me, when I look around, having a clean apartment, feeling like I've done a run, a meditation, an ice plunge, all the dumb shit we love to, I love to make fun of it more than anybody. However, and I'm not dogmatic about it. I also will get there, but my point is if it makes you feel better in the way that you enter the day, good for you. I don't care if you have to hang upside down by your feet or if you need to run 30 miles. It doesn't matter. Whatever gets you going, I say go for it. And part of the beauty of remote work is allowing for scheduling like that. If for you, 27 minutes of meditation at 3 p.m. really takes the edge off, good for you. Do that. And I think that that is where flexibility and empathy comes into the discussion, because now we're talking about, listen, if it makes you a better version of yourself to do the things that you came to do, great. I don't care what it is. I happen to love to run. I love cold plunges. I love all of that shit. But do I do it every day? No. It's an ideal. It's something that I really appreciate. But on the flip side, I also think that there needs to be a lot of room for flexibility. And Tyler and I talk about this sometimes, where when a new habit enters the chat, like a bombshell on Love Island, there has to be flexibility, because now attaching too much value to that habit or that practice or that behavior, to that morning routine, whatever it is, can also be detrimental, because we let ourselves slip and say, well, but I didn't have my matcha this morning. I didn't get my lion's mane in. I didn't get to meditate. And you give yourself an excuse to fuck off for the rest of the day in a way that just places the responsibility on the habit instead of on the person.
So Kaylin, you did a good job walking that back, because at one point it sounded like you were just being defensive ahead of time for when we would inevitably get to start making fun of cold plunges and meditation.
I was going to say, this is really unfortunate, because as oftentimes happens, Kaylin says, I wildly disagree with you, and then says something I 100% agree with. It is not at all disagreeing with me in the slightest.
But on that point, like you see it in examples of like fitness, and the people that often fail to get a good routine going are the ones that are very rigid, and they're like, I'm going to work out 5 days a week. And the first week they work out 3 days a week, they're just like, oh, I ruined it. Like, guess I can't do that anymore. And then they're just gone, right? Like it's like for all things, like you need to set the goalposts. And yeah, if it makes you feel good, that's great. But at the end of the day, like are you one of those people where you got 4 hours of sleep the night before and then you're like, well, I guess I can't do anything today because I'm going to be tired, right? Like, that's not true. Like, you can push through that stuff, right? And I think it's like the same exact concept where, like, it's a lot of it's mind, a lot of it's mental.
I think that's why I honestly think that wearables and biometrics are another red herring. I think that there is such thing as too much data. I think there is such thing as too many metrics. And to me, that's another thing people do to delude themselves into thinking that they're doing a proverbial good job. Whatever your metric is, I used to wear a Whoop religiously, but it was just because I really liked its tracking mechanisms. I was never dogmatic about it. I just sort of, the battery started dying and I stopped wearing it. So fine. But I really do know a lot of people who look at their sleep score and go, oh, today is shot. Why? Because it's in the red. Get it together. Get your shit together. Slug some coffee. Or if you're not a caffeine drinker, do whatever you need to do. The world does not stop turning. And we've given ourselves too many excuses that rely on external factors or data sources that are giving us an excuse to opt out. And I'm not trying to say, oh, you have COVID, now blitz through anything, or oh my God, you have the flu, give it to everybody else by going in the office. That's not what I'm saying. But I really do think we've created a very large number of comfort mechanisms to tell us, you're doing a good job. You're doing a great job. Don't worry about it. The world is hard. And then we rely on that when we're not feeling our best to let us off the hook. And
So-
I think that has gotten a little bit too far because we have so much data, so much knowledge, and so many sources of external validation that it has become like a self-reinforcing nightmare.
So I'm going to jump in and say this ties back very well to a couple of episodes that we've already talked about. In our very first episode, we talked about how if you're going to start a company, you need to know yourself. No amount of external information is going to tell you about yourself. I could give you every single piece of data in the world and still not going to tell you how to know yourself. Instead of seeing some number that tells you you didn't sleep well, know yourself. How are you feeling today? Have the energy to do that? Don't you have the energy to do that? And this is the poster child of things that are easier said than done.
Totally.
It has taken me years to figure out how to do this. When I was in law school,
calibrate yourself. Okay, great. Maybe
Exactly.
today it's not my best outreach day. Okay.
yeah,
Do
don't do it.
something else.
Yeah.
There are plenty of things to do. And I think that one of the other things I think people do that's a sort of a silly external metric of how they delude themselves into thinking that they're moving the needle is something like outreach, right? You keep an airtable of the thousands of shots you shoot. Absolutely, volume is a metric. No question. That is, for some people, volume-based attempts are how they base the success of their business, or is at least how they get off the ground. But I think it is a comforting thing for a lot of people to say, well, here's my Airtable, here's my Excel spreadsheet, here's my Notion document, whatever it is. I sent out 30,000 emails in the last 18 months. Okay, were they even remotely topical? Did you reach the right audience? Like, these are the things that I think a lot of people talk about in a vacuum where they say, it's just a numbers game. You just got to have more at bats. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
But are you taking the right at bats or are you wasting your fucking time?
Well, it's kind of like if you're a golfer, just use an analogy, and you go and you hit 1,000 golf balls a day, but you're doing it with the worst possible form and doing it completely wrong. Or there's the guy that goes and hits 100 a day, but he's honing in, making sure that every shot he's adjusting and getting better. There are levels to this, right? And I think that talks to the exact thing you're saying, where yes, you need to have a bias to action, but it can't just be mindless action. So you check the box and then felt good about yourself that I did a thing today, right? It needs to be, you still need to be able to look back and reflect and did I move the needle? Am I improving? If I am not improving from this point, then guess what? I hate to tell you, but you wasted your fucking time.
Exactly.
Don't demonetize me, YouTube.
I'm gonna get back into talking back to what I was earlier talking about are you meant to start your own company? And this really ties into that. Are you really good at knowing yourself? Are you good at knowing what's not working and what is? Are you good at knowing how you're feeling? Because nobody is going to tell you, don't do this. For me, the value of exactly what Caitlin was saying of well, today I kind of feel like shit. I don't feel like networking. Okay, don't. There are a million other things I could do that may or may not have to do with my business. And nobody is going to say that is a stupid waste of time, right? Because I know for me, it isn't a waste of time, right? Because this gets into two parts. Number one is I think it's a mistake to say only things you're doing that are expressly about your business are a useful use of your time as an entrepreneur. That is a mistake. There are things you can do for your mental health, like the morning routine, that have nothing to do with your actual business, that will make a huge difference in your actual business. And two, can you recognize where you are? Because in an office job, the guy who you were talking about who hits 1,000 times, doesn't matter if he gets any better. That's his job, is to just hit it a bunch of times. Somebody's going to tell him.
Also true.
Tell him, don't do it this way, right? But the guy who hits it 100 times has to know every single time, oh, I should adjust it this way, and oh, I should adjust it that way, and oh, I should adjust it that way. So the guy who is the hitting it 100 times is the classic entrepreneur. The guy who is hitting it 1,000 times and doesn't want to analyze is the classic really effective employee at a company. Who are you? Which one are you?
Yeah, or he's the AI startup who's just using volume-based metrics to
Yeah.
spam the shit out of everybody. No, I think that's actually a really excellent analogy. I do think
Yeah.
those are, and in order to delineate, are you a leader or are you a follower? You have to think about, are you looking for those ways of improvement? Are you trying to up your efficacy, or are you just doing the thing you were told to do? Because if your job is to take 1,000 at bats every single day, no problem, or at
Yes.
swing, then fine. And you're just going to continue doing them the way that you're doing them. But even so, even in that respect, is somebody else monitoring? I think we see this when companies get really bloated. Is anybody actually paying attention to whether or not there is a better way this could be done? And are there any incentives?
So I think an important metric to look at when we're looking at things of like, is this actually useful for my business or not, is to kind of like semi-categorize things into different camps of like straight up procrastinating, right? Like it's easy to overgeneralize and blah, blah, blah. So that's why this is a very broad framework. Straight up procrastinating, like mental health stuff that isn't directly my business. And this is directly my business, right? And is the stuff that goes in directly in my business actually efficient for your business? Or is it just something that makes you feel good and therefore probably goes into the procrastinating bucket? So like,
point on the buckets, that final one is, how sure are you it's relevant to your business? Because
Yes.
just because Alex Hormozy said to do this thing, is
Right.
it at all relevant to your electrolyte company? Like,
Yeah.
he's
He's
talking,
talking to the electrician, the local electrician or something like that. You know what I mean?
like, we're talking about acquiring businesses, school, circle, right? Things that are like these digital platforms. Fine. Great. But when you are taking somebody who has been ostensibly successful, taking their advice, are you applying it in the context of relevance, right? Because Gary Vaynerchuk, Alex Hormozy, I mean, I could list off a gajillion folks who have big platforms and talk about what has worked for them. But are you blindly following that advice? Or are you taking the snippets that make sense and evaluating what parts of that need to get cut out because they're not relevant to you? And I think a lot of folks really do blindly follow the advice and feel a bit self-soothed by the fact that an expert told them to do this thing, or didn't tell them to do this thing, but said, this is what I did. And they feel like they can sleep at night and everything's going to work out because they copied the playbook, but it was the wrong playbook.
exactly.
And so I would put a finer point on that final bucket, because I agree with you, but I do think that there is a nuance there of, are you doing activities and taking action in a way that moves the needle for your unique situation? That's very different than just following a proverbial playbook.
And I think that ties into the knowing yourself thing again, because when I was in law school, the first minute you enter law school, the first year, you get loads of advice. If this is how you should study, this is the way to do it, right? And there is a common wisdom of the way you're supposed to do it. It works for a lot of people and doesn't work for others. And if all you do is just follow that common wisdom, you're going to set yourself up for failure. So take all those things and try all of them once.
Yeah.
And yeah, study best by going deep sea fishing and skydiving on weekends. I'll tell you what. That's how I pass the bar.
So anyway, bringing it all home. Starting a business is really hard. And there are going to be many, many things. You're going to listen to others, like Kaylin said, and you're going to try to apply that. You're going to find something that is almost like a soothing pillow, even though on the surface it may seem like a hard thing. And that may actually be something that you're using as a defense mechanism, because building a business is hard. But at the end of the day, it's a journey, and you're going to have to learn to assess what is actually moving a needle for a business, and what is actually something that's just making me feel like I'm moved the needle. So
also, unlike Alex Hormozi, we are the experts you should absolutely listen to, and not all those other guys.
Totally, because like we're in the midst of getting our butt kicked, so we will gladly tell you about how everything's going on. But for all of us, we are the Insufferable Experts. Please subscribe to us on YouTube, like this video, follow us on Spotify and Apple, and we will see you next week.
Bye, guys.